Hello, 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 everyone. It's Spirit Sessions, A View of the Light. Your Sunday morning, afternoon, whenever you get here. Bright light of the day. And we're so happy to have our guests with us today. Our special new host, Teresa Clan, is here, and you've seen her trailer work. It's awesome. And I'm Rhonda Elliott from Cerulean Forest Reiki. Teresa is from teresaclan.com, and we're both healers, and Teresa does a lot of other things too that are great. And she has found some really interesting people for us to interview, and Shylene from Vancouver Island is one of them. And I'm going to have Teresa introduce her in just a few seconds. Stay tuned, because Shylene's going to pull a card eventually from her new deck. And we want to wish everybody a happy end of October. The thinning of the veil is happening now. So we had Jim and Dar Harold on last week talking about paranormal. Yes. And this week we want to talk about something that people think is paranormal, but it's really, really normal. It's the most natural thing in the world. We're going to talk about death and how to prepare for death as those days of fall start to wind down and we start to think about things going to sleep. We're also thinking about souls that have passed, the ancestors that have passed. And we're just so delighted to have someone like Shylene, a death walker, come to our show and describe what she does and how she makes the whole process the most natural process in the world after birth. Actually, probably even more. Come to a more serene conclusion. Anyways, Teresa, have you got anything to say? And remember, this is also going to be on our podcast and on our YouTube channel, so please subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you will get the most fabulous things to watch. Everything's free there. Just go in and do a deep dive. So, Teresa Clan, how are you today, now that you don't sound like Barry White anymore?
Yeah, a little raspy, a little lungy earlier on, but we have tools, so we use them. Once again, I am just so thrilled to be here with you, Rhonda, with all of our viewers and listeners and the families and the angels that contribute to our podcast. And I am especially thrilled and touched to be able to introduce Shylene Schlackl to everybody that's enjoying our podcast today. Yourself, that you are an interdisciplinary artist, death walker, and founder of RestSure, a creative initiative dedicated to redivining life through the lens of death, through art, storytelling, and honest communication. You invite people to explore what truly matters with ritual, ceremony, and the art of remembering our dead. You help us uncover what makes us wish to be remembered, and so much more. I've had the honor to share a lot of time in a workplace with Shylene, and she is truly one of the wisest women I have ever met. And at this age, that's saying a lot, and her eloquence, the beauty, and your ability to step up and be authentic and present an idea have been challenging, but it's not. You just were always inviting me to be more me. So thank you for being here. Thank you. And Rhonda, thank you for the introduction. And Shylene, I'm sure we are all interested in this conversation, even though it might be a little scary for some. Yeah, so where would you like to start? Did you want to maybe tell us how you got into this kind of work?
I think I'd like to start by reminding us just to stay in our bodies, right? Sometimes we can get stuck in our heads and then get a little wound up about it, and then our heart rates go up because it makes us nervous. So just to settle in, get yourself a cup of tea. This is super casual and super real. And allow your heart rate to go up about, unless you're getting excited. And this work does excite me. I got started kind of by accident. The universe had slowed me down in my other work. I was a professional mosaic artist for 25 years, doing large-scale community public art around this area of the island and abroad. And one day my hands stopped working. I woke up, so I couldn't hold a coffee cup. My hands were like clenched and stuck. And so I had to really slow down. And in doing so, Spirit started talking. And over the course of this transitional time in my career, around my community, in a very short span of time, a lot of people died. And so I had about 13 people die in about 15 months, and they weren't intimates of mine. They were colleagues that I wasn't that close to. They were neighbors. They were my sister's people. They were some of my other people's people. So they were like two circles out from me. And I was able to really lean in and listen and watch. And I saw a distinct difference between families who had had these conversations and allowed themselves to be vulnerable with each other and versus those who had put it all under the rug. And the difference was night and day. The difference was the families who had talked about it and had plans in place, they were able to roll with it and be present to it. And their grief was not much different, because grief is grief, loss is loss, but there was no stress. There was very little trauma. There was simply love. There was simply presence. And I was like, okay, how do we get more present? How do we become more available to this reality? And so I started studying, and I started putting myself everywhere death was. I showed up at a bunch of funerals. I offered to support my colleagues and friends when their people died. I would go to the funeral and I would sit in the back of the room and I'd wear a hat. And so my person could see me in the back. And when they were speaking, I would just breathe. I would breathe really exaggeratedly. And then they would see me and they would breathe. And together we held the field, and they were able to calm themselves, stay present. I was like, okay, what's this? And I just let myself start learning. And that all happened in 2011, 2010. So this has been quite a few years of me being present to the presence of death and being okay with talking about it kind of all the time. I have to say, it did get me uninvited for a while. Like, people were like, maybe Shylene shouldn't come to our Christmas party because she's going to want to talk about death. And I was like, well, it's not going anywhere because it's Christmas, right? So, but they're still not planning. They still don't want to do the work. Mm-hmm. So at first I thought I was going to do advanced care planning. And I started creating a program with a local celebrant, Susan Blackwood, who helped me start RestSure. And she was doing funerals and weddings. And she was also seeing that people were showing up to funerals with no idea how to handle death. They knew that they needed to hire somebody, but they didn't know anything else. And that's when ceremony and ritual started studying other cultures that did death well, and started to create sort of a toolbox for myself. And early on decided I didn't want to have a belief. I didn't want to have a practice. I didn't want to have a dogma. I wanted to be able to stay really open so that I could allow others to bring to the table what it was that is theirs, so that they would work with us. It wasn't going to be me telling them what to do.
Right. Oh my gosh, I am Flowerwood. And how amazing your answer to, the call to spirit. One day your hands wouldn't work. And then you couldn't have made this up.
No. Yeah. It was hard. I have to tell you, like I have a distinct memory of standing outside my art studio and looking into it and just staring because I couldn't physically do anything at that time. And my daughter, who maybe was 10 or 11 at the time, stood beside me. She's like, "What are you doing?" Because I wasn't going in and I was just literally standing there. And I said, "Yeah, that is the question, honey. What am I doing?"
Sort
And
of a death
there was this,
yourself of your.
yeah, there was a, I was in grief. I was in a loss of identity. And at that moment, people were knowing me in the city as a mosaic artist, and I was called the Mosaic Lady. Now I couldn't do that work. I was like, okay, what is this? And I did think that I was going to let go of being an artist and move strictly into death. Now I recognize that the art is how I keep my childlike work is the queen of death. This is so it's created a bridge for me, and I like to call myself. Oh,
Well, that kid set shivers up my spine.
yeah. Skeletons back there hanging out.
I was just going to mention the Day of the Death and how the Mexican culture does death really well.
That's right.
And they celebrate.
They do. I mean, they take it really far. I believe in some places in Mexico, they have a practice of the grave.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I thought the picnics was weird.
Dress them,
Yeah,
put them in fresh clothes, sit them up for a day, and have the Day of the Dead and honor their dead, and then rebury them. And they do that, I think, for 5 years in a row to really be present to the change of that person no longer being in their life, but that this person is now their ancestor who deserves honoring. And I don't think everybody does that anymore. I think it's value that do that. But hello, like so present. And they're doing this in front of everyone. It's not hidden from their children. It's not hidden from the sick. It's not like, oh, we can't talk about that because it might make someone upset. It's more like we have to unbury grandma because today's the day and we're going to do the thing. And I'm like, wow, man. And there's so much embodiment of life's transitions within that way of holding death as a tool for family connection, not a disengagement, but and deepening.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like a deepening. So not necessarily like a celebration, but just an touch in with that. A form of love.
It is a form of love, yeah. And ceremony and ritual, we've lost that in our culture as well, with the change of beliefs in religion. We talk about how to re-ritualize living so that we can have ceremonies and rituals around dying as well. I think that death is a direct shadow of life. And if you're living in fear, how could you not die in fear? If you're living with a bunch of stuff hidden in your closet, right? Skeletons in your closet, you will die that way. So, and start unveiling some of our fear in a safe setting, in a collective setting, in a well-witnessed setting, in a sacred setting. I think we've lost all of those tools for the most part. Maybe not inside this realm of the folks that would watch your series here, but generally speaking, most of us don't ritualize much, and we don't create rooms in our offices, in our work environments. How do we walk sacredly so that we can die sacredly?
Yeah, because I think death is like the salt of our life. It just so we make every day sacred, like you said. Every day is special because we're here right now, living in this meat suit right now as a spirit. And when we go to spirit, people go, "Oh, that's great," no, but you don't get the duality. You don't get the opposites. You don't get the joy and the sorrow. You don't get to feel those things. It's sort of just, I think, I don't know. I haven't been there lately, so I'm not sure. But I think embracing death helps us embrace life without fear, because we're not really worried about the end. We know that it's coming no matter what we do. So let's enjoy what we've got right now.
I think that is partly true, and it also is a barrier for us doing the work. I'm trying to enjoy today. Why would I talk about my death? That's going to take away my joy, right? That's going to make me not enjoy today. That sounds horrible. I'm not going to talk about it because I'm enjoying right now, talking about this horrible thing that's going to maybe happen, maybe one day. I'm like, well, there's no maybe, and it is going to happen. So putting some tools in place to support your loved ones. Like, how do you be a hero in your own family? It's getting this shit done. It's putting some things in place to, like I said, the name of my company is RestSure. So the idea there is by putting tools in place, putting systems in place, putting paperwork in place, putting your passwords in a place where people can find them, all of those things help you lie down at night and go, oh yeah, it's all taken care of. I can rest. Right? So you're not stressing out at bedtime. And when you do get sick or you are up on that door, your family knows. Your family can rest because they're not worried about, oh gosh, what am I supposed to do? What if? They're more like, oh yeah, it's in the file folder. Mom already made all of her decisions. And we all know it's okay. It's gonna work out. Right? And trying to not control it so much. But creating plans, putting things in place, even if it's basic conversations. You know, one of those people that died at the early part of my journey, her and I had epic conversations about her dying. She had stage 4 things she wanted and everything she didn't want. And we weren't new friends. She did not tell me the same thing she told her mom or her sister or her son. In fact, she didn't give them very much information at all. She wanted to live. She wanted to live lightly. She wanted to be fun. So she didn't talk about her death with them. She talked about her death with me. So then when she was literally dying, they didn't know what to do. And I was like, well, wait a second. She told me all these things, but she didn't tell me in a way that was documented. And I was some random friend that her family didn't know. So I wasn't given any rights to, I couldn't do anything back and go, okay, how do we actually do this better? So we have a tendency to placate people, right? Like, my daughter can't handle this, so I'm going to talk to her about it like that, or my mom gets really worked up about that, so I'm only going to tell her this part. We can start having circles about this, where the person who has a plan, wants a plan, can call their family together and have a really heartful conversation with a candle and a smudge. Wow. But we're not really good at that either, right? Like, having conversations where we don't interrupt each other the whole time. It's tricky. And each family is a little different. Each death is different, just like each birth is different. So my goal is to casualize this, simplify it. And that's why I built the Death of Cards, was because I recognized that people didn't want to plan and they didn't want to have these conversations. So I started designing this Death of Cards to help people just get more casual about it. So I thought today we could just draw a card or two and see what it tells us to do. And this deck is multi-leveled. It's got 8 sections, 4 different kinds of just help us be inspired. Conversation cards help us literally start a conversation. Contemplative cards, which are about going inward. How do I contemplate what's important to me? And then directions. Literally, if you took out all 8 direction cards and followed what they said, you would have a pretty comprehensive end-of-life plan. So interestingly, the only thing I don't tell you to do in this deck is to make a will, because it won't help you die better. It's only used after you die. But how do we die better? How do we with death?
One thing about wills, and my sister and I talked about this too, is people don't tell people what's in their will. It's like, it's supposed to be like a surprise party when you die. You should be telling your family exactly what's in your will, and not using it as a ransom or anything else. You should tell everybody who's in the will what's in the will and how it's going to be ahead of time.
I've heard of people who actually designate an executor and do not tell the person that they're the executor of their will.
Oh, yeah.
And so people don't find out until the person's died that they're the executor of said will. That's gross. That's pressure. And that isn't really solving anything. That's actually sort of a wimpy way of doing your end of life stuff. And it's not even. It's just taking care of your material possessions.
It's not fair.
It seems like you're kind of getting some stuff taken care of. And you are. You know, it's better to die with a will than without one. However, you just created a bunch of drama in your life for your family. So, okay. So you guys say stop, and I'll pull the card that is coming up when one of you says stop.
Stop.
Okay. Okay, so this is a conversation card. It's going to be backwards on your screen.
Here, let me see. Let's see if I've got.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's good. I got you.
So conversation. This is part of the legacy section of the deck. It says, after my death, please feel free to talk behind my back, but be sure to share the story about ... So this is like, what's our legacy? What do you want people to talk about? Right? Write that down. Share those stories now, because people will talk about you and the whole thing. And what is your legacy? What kind of ancestry are you leaving behind? And so, yeah. Without going into too long of a thing, did anything pop for either of you about a story you hope people share about you?
Well, for me, I just got to say, I am so appreciating your creativity by weaving in creating a card deck to help massage open these kinds of awarenesses for you leading up around this particular campfire. And what came for me is just the times when, say, my daughter and I just start laughing and we can't stop. You know, ugly laughing tears or face, or just sitting and it randomly pops up again and then I just burst out laughing. You know how that can be. So it's that kind of little random joyful sprinkles, like bring that forward. That's what came for me first anyways.
Yeah. Rhonda, was there a story that popped for you real quick?
Not at the no, there's so many stories, but and maybe that's the thing. I always am full of stories. And whether my kids like it or not. So I always have a story for them.
So this deck is designed to be casual, and the skull is casually looking upwards, not really afraid, just sort of contemplating the whole thing. And I did that on purpose. I didn't want, most of the skeletons we see in our culture are like demonic or evil. They've got this like growly face. No. Let's casualize it. Let's rainbow, you know. So the deck beginning, it takes you from your root all the way through, all the way to your crown, and at the very end, the only thing that's left is all of your stuff. You know, because really, you're gone. Your stuff remains. So,
my kids love that.
I found that when I was with my mom during her passing, you know, she was in the hospital for a week or so, and I spent a lot of time there. And I noticed in the last couple of days, it's like her root chakra just shrank and got smaller and smaller than the sacral one too. And they stayed in here, which added so much beauty to sharing that time. And that's why I describe it as being sacred and honors some memories I hold so clear to me. There was no fear there at all. It was all beauty and joy and unity and eternally.
Yeah. You had that value and that belief. And I think that helps, right? Those of us who do have sacred practice, that do see that evolution through the body, are able to be present. When people just see my mom can't move, that freaks them out. My mom hasn't moved her legs in 3 days. That scares people. But I think through the work that a lot of the folks on your series are talking about, how do we clear the channel? How do we open the field? How do we be silent, present? How do we create sacredness again? And, you know, I do liken it to birth. You know, the opposite of death and baby's crown when they come in, right? We crown when we leave. Right. So it's both the journeys have a similar moment of ascension, essentially. Yeah.
Beautiful. And I suppose, again, we are so death phobic because we've lost that sacredness. We've lost those third spaces where people can get together and elders can be with young ones in a casual setting that costs little to nothing to be a part of key points in our life that we want to mark, you know, beyond birthdays, anniversaries, but, you know, a young girl getting her moon time or whatever it happens to be. So what you're suggesting is just to weave the spirituality, the sacred back into our everyday life. That includes honoring like the rhythm and the pulses and the cycles in nature, which will then automatically extend to the end of life experiences.
Yeah, and that's the remembering part, right? A tree doesn't freak out when it goes through its seasons. It just does what needs to happen. And the rose does what it needs to do of it. They're going through it naturally. This is a natural process. And death is not an emergency, right? There can be an emergency when we freak out, when we don't have a plan and everybody starts to panic. But if we do this well, if we talk about it, if we strategize with reverence, with complete calm, with a sense of, okay, we've got this. We're doing this together, you know?
And it seems to me, you know, it sounds like you have a multi-step or stage process to this. In part, that would help someone who is, you know, doing it for themselves to die consciously, to die in a good way, to help them address their own grief for leaving a life behind. So it's not just for those around them.
End. You know, if the person that's dying is freaking out, chances are around them's going to be freaking out too. If the person who's dying has a sense of understanding of themselves and their own journey, that's going to calm the field, right? And oh, sorry about that. And there's like one of the things we teach at RestSure is the idea that each of us has a death story. Each of us has a death timeline. So one of the cards encourages you to create your own death timeline. So basically, you take a piece of paper, draw a line on the piece of paper. At the beginning of the line, you put the very first death you can remember. And from that, you learned a lot. You were taught a lot, even if you were young. Idea of what death looks like is. And you created a whole bunch of beliefs and values around that very first death. And then as we go through life, different deaths happen. And right now, in this moment, the most recent death that you've experienced. So Teresa, I think that's your puppy.
Yeah, right? My little dog crossed the rainbow bridge recently.
And that death still has a grief bubble all around it. It's right there. It's very present, our most recent deaths.
Yes.
And so the first death impacts our values and beliefs and thoughts about what we think death is. And then the most recent death is impacting a room and there's someone actively dying or very sick. Every person in that room's death timeline is impacting how they're seeing this person. So it's really important to understand that active grief is in the room, not about the person that's dying, but about you and what you've recently processed or not. and your values and beliefs about how you think death works based on what you were taught at this moment with the dying person. So if we can remember that and have presence and grace for that, then somebody who's in the room that feels a little too emotional, you kind of can't figure out why they're so freaking out. They barely even like the person who's dying. Well, they're not upset about the person that's dying. They're upset about what they believe about death. So it's freaking them out a little bit, maybe. All that we're seeing. So those understandings have really helped me carry more grace for the collective and the misunderstanding we mostly have for each other.
Wow, that's fascinating. That puts a whole other texture, flavor to this for me. Thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah, really, really important. You know, my sister and I, we've both experienced so much death in our lives. So both of us find in our communities able to handle it in a way that other people can't. The first time she had a death was her grandparents. And then there wasn't another big death until her parents died. So she only had like her parents and her grandparents were the only real death that she'd experienced as a person. And then she became a celebrant and had done tons of funerals, but these were mostly for people she didn't know. So her experience had like 40 deaths under my belt or something like that. And she only had 4 besides the professional ones. So together we were really able to identify a lot of different things because of our own death experience and our own death timelines. Yeah.
Wow. And so do you work with the families as well? Like not just by, sharing wishes and suggestions for all this stuff. Do you work with the families as well? And if
unfortunately, for the most part, the folks that I've worked with have kept me kind to themselves. And one of the last big deaths I had, the only reason why I jumped in with the family was because upon visiting his home, he had a lot of little notes written all over his coffee table and all his medicine on the coffee table. And his handwriting was getting messier and messier, and you couldn't quite read most of the Post-it notes unless you knew his writing. And on a Post-it note in giant font was my name. No message, just my name in giant font compared to everybody else's work, everything else he'd written. I was like, okay, that tells me I'm supposed to be here right now. And he agreed. And the work we had done in the past informed me that I was to be here. But again, he didn't pull his family in. So it gets tricky. People can kind of do this work, but I've been doing this work for over a decade. My family's pretty cool. Lots of my family still hasn't done any work at all. So I'm leaning in towards the generation below me for the most part. And I'm informing them and empowering them because they're the ones that are going to be left after the tsunami. So we call it the silver tsunami. So when all the baby boomers check out, how do we learn how to ride that tsunami and get out of the way? Because the tsunami comes in and like takes everything out with it, and then it draws back, is to really empower the generations below me and my cousins and my cousins' children, and to get better at doing these conversations casually and ceremonying the world in a new way. And my daughters didn't understand that other people don't talk about this. My kids were like, well, what do you mean? I was like, no, sweets, people don't talk about this. That's why Mama does this work. And they were like, well, everybody dies, right? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, well, what do you mean no one talks about it? I was like, sorry, you guys, it's just where we're at. So my children have, and in fact, one of my daughters, my grandmother died on her birthday. And so it put together birth and death in a beautiful way that now everybody's like, oh, it's Nana's death day. Oh, but it's Ireland's birthday. So there's this death and celebration happening every single time for the rest. How do I involve families? It's by being this way in the world and talking to littles about it and empowering the generation below us so that they can handle it. And I encourage folks, you can't tell your mom what to do. You can't beg your mom to do this. What you can do is do it. Do it for you. Make an active death plan when you're a young person. Most of us don't retire on time. We make holiday plans. Half the time we have to cancel the holiday. We make wedding plans. Sometimes we never marry that person. So we make a death plan and know that it can change. It's an active, organic, living document. This death book,
but it's a place to start from, and it's a way to open up. So, if you had an ideal situation, what would ideally a situation or a client look like to you? How would you like? What would be your ideal like dynamic or whatever? Would you want the whole family there, and everybody coming in and making it kind of a Tupperware party thing going on?
Yeah, I think so. So I have done one of these with a woman and her friends, and that was really cool because they were really open and free with each other. And then they were able to go away and take that home to their families. But my ideal situation would be 3 generations sitting in a circle, lighting a candle, listening actively to each other, letting the lead be whoever called the circle, and maybe it's multiple sessions where I'd lead the family in having this type of conversation, how to actively listen, how to wait till the other person's finished, and then let everyone have a voice, even the children, and get better at that. And then start announcing your plans, right? Like, let's get better at healthy conversing around complicated conversations before we dump all the goo in. If that makes sense.
It does. This is like the great equalizer in a good way, right? It's not about race or position or money or any identifiers, any labels. No. Those all go away. So I wonder if that's part of the scary part for people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I can see in a conversation like that where everybody's able to say, like, let's say we just start with one question. What do you want for the end of your life? What do you want for your body's disposition? And then one person's like, I want to be cremated. I want to be dropped out of a plane. I want to be buried. I want a green burial. I don't want to die. I'm not going to die. Let everybody just say what it is. And somebody take notes, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Perfect. Clear that. Ring a bell. Ding dong. Next question. What are you afraid of with dying? And let everybody in the circle speak, including the children, about what they're afraid of. And, there's a timer or a way to hold that container. And then someone's documenting. Next question. And maybe we do 3 rounds of that with the agreement that we're going to do this again in a month or 2. And we're just going to keep doing it until each one of us is clean and clear about what the other person wants and doesn't want. And it's going to open up that conversation then when you're alone with any of these people. Oh, remember the other day when we were talking, you said, like with my mother helping her make her plan, we came to the understanding that we want completely different things. And it was through going through this process that we were able to identify that. And she's like, what do you mean that's what you want? I'm like, well, what do you mean? I don't want what you want. This is why you have these conversations, because we're asking people to be someone's medical advisor or their power of attorney or their whichever position you're asking someone else to play. They need to know what you want because they're going to do what they think's best. It's not necessarily what you want. So being very clear about what you want, and you're asking this person to hold up what you've asked for, not do what they think is the best idea, because that's what ends up happening. People get put in these positions of whichever position. It doesn't matter what it's called, because I know in different states and in different provinces in Canada, we call these positions different names. So I try not to label the positions because we don't call them the same things. But there's official positions that you can put people in around your end of life. And if you don't tell them explicitly what you don't want, they're going to do what they think is best.
Yeah. Even when it goes to like, I don't want heroic measures. So
Right.
what are heroic measures to you?
Yes.
Is it you don't want to be resuscitated? Is it you don't want to be put on life support, but you want to be resuscitated? What is heroic measures? Do you want just go? If you're flatlining, just leave me.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be. So you need to be very specific what heroic measures are. Heroic measures could be an IV if you have a systemic type of pneumonia going on.
That's right.
So
yeah.
What are heroic measures?
She kind of wants everything, do anything. And I was like, okay, what does that mean though, Mom? Like we do it all. We do all the medical things, but you're only going to come up with 25% capacity. Is that what you want? And she goes, well, no. And I was like, okay. So we kept having to
Very
keep lifting the layers, because I'm like, okay, so if you can't speak for yourself, right? If you can still speak for yourself, you can choose whatever you want to choose. But if you're incapacitated for some reason because of an injury or a sickness, an accident, right? Mm-hmm. Someone's going to have to make these decisions. And usually it's your next of kin. Well, that changes depending on your life and if you don't have a partner and all these other things. So being very clear with the person that you're pretty sure is going to need to make those decisions for you, what that means, right? Like my husband's like, yeah, I'll take the robo liver. And I was like, really? Like, you want to be a science experiment? He's like, yeah, I really do. I was like, okay, what does that mean for me? Like, you want to have all the science, but who's taking care of you when you come out of science and now you're still alive, but you're only what percentage of your capacity is still with us? Who's taking care of you then? Whose job is that? Can we talk about caregiver burnout much? Right? So like I really push the line about what you want and what's fair to the others who are then held accountable for your decisions. So again, like how do we be a hero in our own families? It's about getting cleaner and clearer and honest. Like this isn't about dreamy. Like, yeah, what's my ultimate client? Well, ultimately it'd be that people start doing this work and looking honestly, and not with fear, but with like appreciation and gratitude for their loved ones and for those who are going to be left behind holding the bag,
And go visit a nursing home and go see what it's really like. Because it's not playing pinochle all day long. It's laying in bed while half your roommates don't have their mind and can't even speak.
No,
it's not a social place.
It's
a sad warehousing of long-term palliative care.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because
but sorry. Pardon me?
I said because of medical decisions that were made without thinking about the long-term impact of that medical decision. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You kept their life, but are they living?
Mm. Yeah. Right. And there is room for socialness in this conversation as well. Like I'm in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about, bucket lists or just, I want to have that final conversation with so-and-so. There's things I need to put to rest before I feel I can, peacefully move on. Does that come up as well?
Well, that's sort of the skeleton stuff that we were mentioning earlier, like the unresolved stuff. There's a book called The American Book of Living and Dying, and it speaks of spiritual pain and how that manifests in our bodies in illness. And mostly it's unresolved stuff. And Gabor Mate speaks about this, right? That it isn't, we don't pass along addiction, we pass along trauma. And that our coping mechanism is the addictions. But the trauma is the thing that sort of exacerbates that. And I think death and unresolved traumas and unresolved grievances cause us to clench up, cause us to hold on, cause us to tense and push down what we're feeling. And that causes illness. That causes ramifications in our spirit bodies, and it causes pain. And so you're up in your final moments of living, however long that is, and there's all this stuff in your brain that you didn't deal with. You can't rest because you're sure you never had that conversation. You're sure your kids don't know the truth. You're sure your husband never heard the reason for blank, blank, blank.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, having hard conversations is really important, and it's probably one of the biggest avoiders we all have.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the happy stuff too, the happy conversations, writing a letter to someone who positively impact your life, or
Yeah.
if possible, finally taking that road trip with someone, even just
Yeah.
like a weekend getaway, like just weaving that in. Oh, I'm getting angel bumps there, you know?
One of the first projects I ever did when I was studying this work, it's called the Peaceful Dying Project. I'm not sure if it's still around, but there was an online group setting, and it was before Zoom. And so we were just meeting with audio because there was no such thing as this group video yet. And she had you go through a guided journey where you had been diagnosed, and you went to the doctor, got diagnosed with terminal illness, and you go to a park and you sit against a tree, and then you imagine who you need to tell first, and you imagine what you need to deal with, and you imagine your bucket list. And then you come out of this guided journey and you write it all down. Who do you need to see? What are you going to tell them? What's your bucket list? That guided journey has directed everything that I've done since. And it's become sort of these are the three big things I need to deal with before I die. Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So I don't know, it can be more playful when we get rid of the skeletons and the fear.
Yeah.
It can be more playful when we allow ourselves to be really present. And one of the best deaths that I've seen was my good mentor friend, her father. He died. It took him a while to die, but he had everything in place. He had his will done. He had created a care program for himself. He had paid for his funeral. He had everything taken care of. So my friend just got to sit and be with her dad. She just got to be with him, and they just enjoyed those final weeks of living together. And all they did was share stories, and all they did was tell stories and laugh together, because he didn't need to remind her of anything or ask her to do anything. She didn't need to take on a responsible role. She just simply got to be his daughter. And I was thinking, there it is, right? There it is.
Yeah, so cute. I mean, there is a lot of humor in dying. And I remember my mom, and we were chatting about her death because I used to talk to her, nobody else would. I'd say, well, what do you want done? Well, whatever your father's going to have done. That was like, what does that mean, Mom? Well, if he's going to get cremated, I'll get cremated. If he's going to be buried, I'll be buried. But I said, but you're going before him. So what do you want to do? She
Yeah.
says, well, okay. So they left that till the end. But anyways, I said, but if you cremate it, do you want to be buried, or do you want your ashes split up between the girls? And I said, no, we won't want to do that. We'll put them all in margarine containers and hide them in the fridge, because that's how she always stored her leftovers. And I said, but then, my younger sister would say I got more than she did. And, it would have been all a problem. So we laughed for a long time over that. So, yeah. But, there, if you can find the humor in dying, like you said, it's very easy to kind of slip through it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because it is kind of funny that we know all our life that we're going to die, and yet we're still afraid of it in a lot of ways.
And what a beautiful end of life gift to gift our loved ones, where they know we've taken care of all of the minutiae of everything.
Yeah.
We've combed through our past and wanting to be remembered for this, working with, Shylene, making sure nothing is falling through the cracks. So in those last days, weeks, whatever it is, then it's just pure love.
Yes.
And remembrance.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And presence to this part of the transitional time of being in a human vessel. right? And then the other piece that's really important for everyone to recognize is that when your loved one's transitioning, so are you, you know, that you are changing with their leaving. You are changing with them no longer being physically present. And if it's your parents, your aunts and uncles and your grandparents, when the last one of them has gone, you are now in a different position in your family. You are now the elder member of your family, and you are now an orphan. And so that feels really different to be walking on the planet without your elders. When all your elders have gone and you are now the elder, you have transitioned into the next position of humaning. And how do we do that better? We do that better by being present to our elders and our loved ones. And what's coming up right now, too, is the understanding that we don't all get to be old.
Nope.
We don't all die old.
It's
a lot of us
privilege, not a
lot of
guarantee.
die young, and accidents do happen. So that's why I want the children and the youth and the youngers in our families having these conversations. Because if we've never talked to them about what they want, then we're again being put on the spot when they die suddenly. Then we need to make the decision about what to do. But if we've actually talked to them, then it isn't about what we want. It's, remember, we had that conversation and they said they wanted to be cremated, or they said they wanted to have a big party and everybody wear purple, or whatever it was that they said. I think we can dream about dying. We can dream about it in a fantastical way. Like, if I got to have the best death ever, right? What would that look like? And who would be there? And what would it smell like? And what would the music be? And what would my last meal be? And how will it feel? And we can play that out as many times as we want. And by doing that, the rehearsal consciousness of it actually will manifest a lot of things. And it'll create an ease in your body. It'll create an ease in your soul, because you've been there. You've done that. You've imagined it so many times that when it comes to pass, you're like, yeah, I'm ready. I'm good. And so are your people, right? Because it smells really good in the room and the music's awesome. And it doesn't have to be a tortured, horrible event. And it's really sad that it has become that.
Yeah.
I'm sure this, if whoever's watching this, it's going to spark conversations. I know it's going to spark conversations. Tell us again about your deck and where people can find it, because I think that will spark conversations.
Yeah,
for sure.
So it's on our website. So restsure.ca is the website, and you just go to the shop link and it's down there. And if you go onto the shop link,
it's awful to give this to everyone in my family.
I gave it to everyone for Christmas the first year I made it. And I made this, I designed it the Christmas before COVID. So it was kind of creepy. Over 40 families had Death is on the Table sitting in their homes during COVID. And they're like, Shylene, how did you know? I was like, I'm just listening, man. I'm just listening. And so, yeah. My goal is to have this casually just sitting around in your house.
Oh, I think you've given me great ideas for Christmas.
Yeah. So Grief Conversation says here, I will initiate a heart-to-heart about someone who's died. Like, talking about our dead is another really important piece here, right? So another tool that I've built is this beautiful calendar that is to help us talk about our dead. It's a perpetual calendar. I don't know if you guys remember, our mothers used to have like birthday calendars that were perpetual birthday and anniversary calendars. Well, this is one that's for our dead. So every month has a beautiful image made by a local artist here in Victoria. Iris Moore is her name. And every month has a beautiful piece of imagery, has a topic, has a notable death. So we throughout the calendar, we recognize 12 different types of death, of noble deaths and notable deaths. And we have 12 different themes, and a way to then honor anyone who's died in that month. And to me, this is about a way to have death present every day in your house. that death doesn't just happen sometimes. Death happens
That's a
all
lovely calendar. Much
Yeah.
nicer than showing up on my Outlook every.
Well, I have that too. But the
I-
calendar, what I think is important about the calendar is as they fill up over the next 20 years, your family will see, because it's hanging somewhere prominent in your home. That's my goal. That you have 11 people died this year or this month. And that was when grandpa died, or that was when we lost our dog, or that was when your best friend died. And your family will be able to say, okay, this is a big month. Okay. This is a big month. Let's hold each other gracefully. Let's hold each other with compassion, rather than, why is mom acting so weird? Well, this is a heavy month if you've got 11 people that you really love that died.
Yeah.
So that's our goal with this calendar, is to teach self-care. How do we take care of ourselves? By honoring our dead. How do we take care of our loved ones? By honoring our dead. And how do we honor our dead? We've not been practicing that. So let's talk about dying with the death of cards. Let's talk about what we don't want, what we do want, what's important, what we value, and tell that to our people. And then the calendar is about remembering our dead, remembering the brilliance that they brought to us, remembering the grief, remembering the history, remembering that we wouldn't be here or be this person without them in our lives.
That's awesome.
Oh,
And so everything will be attached to this video or podcast. Teresa, were you going? Sorry, I interrupted you. Sometimes I don't get the cues just quickly over the screen. Sorry. Go ahead.
well, I love that you bring so much light to something that people fear because it appears dark.
Yeah.
Everybody I know that's, worked in funeral homes or work with this, or are, death doulas or hospice workers, they consistently have so much light within them. I'm getting angel bumps again. And that's you as well, Shylene. So that to me is almost proof positive about how positive this actually is.
Yeah.
It's just part of who we are, and blessedly so. Blessedly so. So thank you again for sharing your time with us.
Yeah, I love it. I could talk about this endlessly. It is a gift. And I'm grateful that that moment happened in my life where my hands stopped working, because being a mosaic artist wasn't all I had to share with the world. And now I get to do this work, and encouraging all generations to embrace death with some humor and humility. And the brilliance of being alive comes with the brilliance of getting to die.
Yes.
It's funny how you're a mosaic artist, putting little pieces together to construct a whole thing, and you're still doing that. You're putting all the pieces together to construct the whole thing.
I love it. Yeah. Well, and that was sort of the metaphor of being a community builder, was we are like a mosaic, and each one of us plays a role, and each one of us is a piece in the picture. And when we forget a part, we forget a piece, there's a gap. And I think that's the reason for the intergenerational desire, is that it takes all of us. It takes a village to die well, just like it takes a village to do anything. Yeah. Calling in the village.
Beautiful. Oh,
Amazing.
beautiful.
Amazing.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks again, ladies. This was really nice. And, I think it's funny that I say that, because it's really nice to talk about dying, but it is.
It is. It is. I find it, very uplifting, if nothing else, for sure. I think it's a great way.
Beautiful.
It just creates so much optimism. Like, I didn't have fear before, but now I'm actually optimistic.
Right? Yeah.
Right? So, So, so much to be grateful for. So much to be grateful for. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much. And I'm so glad you could join us today. Stay with us after the ending, and we'll see you then.
Okay.
Thanks, Teresa.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Teresa.
everybody. Remember to like and subscribe on our YouTube station.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.